Hello and welcome to Beyond Mount Rushmore, the history you never knew you needed. I'm Jeff Hickox, your host, and our self-proclaimed presidential historian. Across from me, my pal, Stan Nawalaniec.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing, Stan?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Fantastic.
The thing is, I'm retired, but you still have a job.
I do.
And you're today you're tired.
Yeah. I am tired today. It was a busy weekend.
What are we talking about today?
That's your job.
When I first brought this president up to you,
Right.
You weren't sure who the hell he was.
You're 100% correct. And I'm pretty good with presidents. And I was like, wait, what?
And most people don't know who he is.
Yeah.
Poor Franklin Pierce, our 14th president. He's easily forgotten.
Was he named after Hawkeye on MASH?
No,
Okay.
No, he was not.
Benjamin Franklin Pierce.
Hawkeye might have been named after him. But if you ask presidential historians and scholars, and poor Franklin Pierce.
It's a sad story to me.
Yeah, from strictly, though, a political standpoint, when you don't know anything about his life,
Right.
when you ask historians and scholars about him, they will simply say, or at least 9 out of 10 of them will, that he was the worst president we ever had. He's number 47 on the list.
Yeah.
As the worst president we ever had.
Well, when you run down what happened during his presidency, it's easy to make that choice.
Oh, what very trying times. And as you will soon hear, he wasn't up for them.
No, not at all.
He served in the White House from 1853 to 1857. Now, a little bit about Franklin Pierce. He was born November 23rd, 1804. Our only president from the state of New Hampshire. He was born in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. His father was their state's governor. His name, Benjamin Pierce. Before becoming president, I mean, he came with the credentials that you need to be president.
Yes.
He served in the House of Representatives from 1833 until his election to the Senate, where he served from 1837 until his resignation in 1842. He had to resign because already by that point in time, his lovely wife, Jane, had lost a child, and Franklin had a drinking problem. And she felt staying out of Washington, D.C., which she hated, would help him and help herself because of the trauma of a lost child.
She wanted nothing to do with politics.
And she wanted nothing to do with politics. So he granted her wish. He resigned in 1842. His private law practice, huge success. He was a lawyer. And he was appointed the New Hampshire U.S. Attorney in 1845. He was also a bit of a war hero, not like our generals that we talked about, but
Correct.
He was one of those who became a general during the Mexican-American War.
Yes.
He was a brigadier general in the United States Army. Overall, people that knew him then said he was an extremely handsome guy and an extremely likable guy. Everything about him was likable.
Right. At that point in his life, he was very well trusted and very well liked.
Yep. Here is University of Virginia historian Michael Holt describing what Franklin Pierce was like at this point in time.
Okay.
He may have been the most handsome man ever to serve in the White House. He was probably the most amiable president we've ever had. Even historians who are hostile to him remark about how pleasant and friendly he was.
Yeah, because he was a likable guy.
Yeah.
His wife, as we told you, Jane
Mm-hmm.
Jane Appleton.
Mm-hmm.
They had 3 children together.
They did.
Democrats saw him as a compromise candidate. Civil War staring us in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And he, being from the North, believed, or the party believed, that it was about compromise.
Yeah.
Let's not ruffle any feathers. Let's make everything go smoothly. Let's not start any problems. Democrats saw him as a compromise candidate, uniting North and Southern interests, and nominated him for president at the 1852 Democratic National Convention. His VP, Rufus King.
Hey, Rufus.
We remember him. He was James Buchanan's lover. Debatable, but possible.
Right. Yeah, possible. You have to check that episode out.
Yes. I will say that Rufus King loved James Buchanan.
Hands down.
Buchanan may have used him.
Correct.
1852, told you he was a compromise choice, was the Democratic nominee on the 49th ballot.
Yeah, he wasn't really wanting to be. He was kind of propelled into this.
He believed that because from the North, he could compromise and keep us out of war.
Yeah.
That wasn't necessarily what happened.
Well, there's a lot to say about that, but we'll continue with the story.
The Democratic Party, they adopt a platform that rejected further agitation over slavery and supported the Compromise of 1850.
Yeah.
The Compromise of 1850 is a series of agreements that were made to stave off war and appease the South regarding slavery.
Right.
Which state that we allow into the Union is going to be a slave state,
Correct.
which one's going to be a free state.
Yeah.
And also, they instituted the Fugitive Slave Act in part of the Compromise of 1850, which you had the Underground Railroad where African-American slaves were trying to go to the North to safety and freedom. But the Fugitive Slave Act said that if they were caught, they had to, by law, be returned to the South and to their plantation.
Yeah.
The Whig running against Franklin Pierce was his old commander in the Mexican-American War, Winfield Scott. He was known...
I don't know that name either.
Winfield Scott was known as Old Fuss and Feathers for his insistence on proper military etiquette.
I have no problem with that.
None whatsoever. Old Fuss and Feathers. On November of 1852, the election was held between Pierce and Fuss and Feathers. It was a horrible turnout. Again, you had such controversy and people so fed up. People
were not interested in
no
voting for the presidency at that time. They were worried about other things.
In 1852, 27.3% of the voting age population and only 69.5% of eligible voters participated in the election.
That is insane.
When they went to the polls, Franklin Pierce won the Electoral College in a landslide.
Yeah.
The story of Franklin Pierce, though, is often cited as one of the most tragic in American presidential history. And both you and I, as we, you at first didn't know who Franklin Pierce was, but when you're reading about him, you start going, oh my God.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe this would happen to one person. It's horrible.
His private life, and we told you 3 kids, his wife, Jane, his private life was defined by a series of personal losses that many believe left him a shell of the man he was and doomed his presidency.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that believes that.
None of Franklin and Jane's 3 children lived to adulthood.
No.
Now, keep in mind, back then, and we've discussed this many times, mortality rate for children very high.
It was.
And a lot of kids died. A lot of people had big families because it was expected some children, let's face facts, it's not like it is today, a good chunk of your children could die.
Yeah.
First, there was his son, Franklin Jr. He was born in 1836, lived just 3 days. That was it. Franklin Robert Pierce came along in 1839. He died at the age of 4 from typhus, which is a cerebral and spinal meningitis.
Yeah. Each one of these gets worse.
Yeah. How can you go even in the 21st century and handle the responsibility of the country.
Yeah.
War looming when this happens.
Mm-hmm.
In 1841, little Benjamin Benny Pierce came along, and his death in 1853 at the age of 11. It was the most tragic and heartbreaking of all of the Pierce children's deaths.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, Inauguration Day wasn't until March. Didn't change until FDR.
Right. We had that conversation in a previous story,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a reason for it.
Weather.
Yeah. It killed presidents.
Weather was warmer. It killed presidents. It's true. So that gave the nominee plenty of time to get his family together, make arrangements, make their move to Washington, D.C., and move into the White House. Plenty of time from November to March.
Yeah.
On January 6th, 1853, the president-elect, his wife Jane, and 11-year-old Benny were traveling by train from Andover, Massachusetts. They were going back to Concord, New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
They had just attended the funeral of a close relative, and they were preparing to move to Washington, D.C. We're already into the new year.
Right.
Normally, today, he would be inaugurated now.
Yeah.
Only minutes after leaving the train station in Andover, Massachusetts, they don't know for sure if it was an axle that broke or a failed coupling, but the passenger car that the three of them were in derailed.
Mm-hmm.
The car tumbled down a steep, rocky embankment, and the passenger car broke into two.
Yeah.
It was a vicious accident. However, both Franklin and Jane Pierce, they were jolted, but they were unhurt.
Yeah.
Franklin's first instinct was to look over at his son to see if he was all right. He was not. Benny had been nearly decapitated in the wreckage. Franklin's thought immediately went to rush to his son, but also shield his wife's eyes from the horrific scene that was there. But she saw the dead, bloody body of her only remaining child.
Yeah. 11 years old.
She was very fragile to begin with. She had lost two children. This broke them as a family. Mm-hmm. Well, there's no family left.
Yeah, there's no family left.
It broke the two of them.
Yeah.
He was a broken man. It defined his entire 4-year term as
the rest
president.
of his life.
And the rest of his life, as you will find out.
Yeah.
Left both parents and the nation reeling just weeks before he was to take the oath of office. Mm-hmm. When it came time for Franklin Pierce to take the oath, he became the only commander-in-chief to not swear to God, but affirm. Why? He felt that he could not ask for God's blessing after the tragedy and asked that the oath be changed.
Wow.
It was described, since the president and his wife had no living heirs now.
Right.
It is described as one of the most melancholy chapters in U.S. history. The first family broken. Mm-hmm. Civil War staring you right in the face.
Yeah. Not a good time.
Franklin Pierce, after taking the oath, canceled the inaugural ball. Washington, D.C. parties like mad after the inauguration of a president.
They do.
He canceled it. For the first 2 years of his presidency, his wife Jane stayed in the upstairs living quarters, often staying in darkened rooms in the White House, not even coming out.
Refused to be a part of it.
She left all the social duties to her aunt, Abby Kent Means. All the first lady duties, she chose not to participate in any of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jane also because she was deeply religious, always opposed her husband's political ambitions. As we told you, she made him resign from the Senate.
Yes.
She became convinced that God had taken Benny as a sacrifice so that Franklin could lead the country without distraction of a family. That's what she believed.
Wow.
The White House was described by contemporaries as a tomb-like environment. The heavy atmosphere of grief contributed to Franklin Pierce's perceived indecisiveness. Could you blame him?
No, he did not want to make a decision. He wanted to put it off or compromise or hope it would go away.
And the boozing was worse than ever. Franklin Pierce, as we told you, from the time that he first went to Washington, D.C. as a congressman, liked to booze.
Yeah.
The death of his third son at the age of 11 made it worse.
Yeah, it set that on fire.
So 4 years went by and not a whole hell of a lot was done, and we came closer to war. After leaving the White House, the Pierces remained in Washington for more than 2 months, eventually moving to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where they decided that's where they're going to make their home. As the Democratic Convention of 1860 approached, war's right there. There were so many people and indecision makers, I mean weak, spineless people, that they had the unmitigated gall to approach Franklin Pierce again and ask him to run as a compromise candidate.
Again.
With the efforts to unite the fractured party, he refused.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. In 1861, the former president traveled to Michigan. Get a load of this. So he leaves the White House. Again, he's a broken man.
Yeah.
But he leaves the White House, and so many people are blaming him for the approach of the Civil War because he did nothing.
Right.
And James Buchanan did nothing.
Right. But the
after
nothing
him.
he did caused a lot of bloodshed.
Correct. And so Northerners, where Franklin Pierce came from, were accusing him of being a Southern sympathizer.
Yep, they were.
And they stopped at nothing to smear him. And I mean, smear him with lies that continued to break this man.
Yeah.
In 1861, the former president traveled to Michigan to meet with some of his old political friends.
Okay.
A Detroit bookseller sent a letter upon seeing this to Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of State, very famous man, William H. Seward.
Yes.
The letter accused Pierce of meeting with disloyal people in wartime and saying that he had heard there was a plot to overthrow the government and establish Pierce as president.
Jeez.
It's not true.
Nothing could be farther from the truth. He did not want to be president.
Later that month, the Detroit Tribune printed an item calling Pierce a prowling traitor spy, hinting that he was a member of the pro-Confederate Knights of the Golden Circle. Untrue.
Knights of the Golden Circle.
Untrue.
No.
Seward knew this, but he kept going after Franklin Pierce. He knew it was a lie. Didn't care. Seward went and wrote Pierce, demanding to know if these charges of being a spy and a part of this Golden Circle were true.
And?
Pierce denied them.
Of course.
He said, no, what are you talking about? And you keep it up, I'm going to really get ticked off.
Yeah.
Seward backed off. Unbelievable. Much was also made of Pierce's friendship with Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy.
Right.
Saying Jefferson Davis is a hot word for a lot of people.
It is, yeah.
He Jefferson Davis was a loyal member of the United States of America Congress.
He was.
And as so many leaders and military men and political men, it was states that they sided with because we are the United States.
Right. It wasn't against America. It was for the state from which they came.
Precisely. And even today, people don't understand that.
I know.
Oh, Jefferson Davis, a Confederate. How? Take down the statues.
Yeah. Read his story before you do that.
Exactly. But they went after Franklin Pierce because of his friendship with Jefferson Davis before Jefferson Davis went with his state and became president of the Confederacy.
Right.
Pierce wrote Davis a letter before the Civil War. So before Jefferson Davis ever became president of the Confederacy, Franklin Pierce wrote him a letter.
Okay.
Predicting that civil war would result in insurrection in the North. Those letters were released to the press.
Oh, boy.
Which just even added to the crap that he was dealing with.
Yeah.
His much suffering wife died of tuberculosis in Andover, Massachusetts in December of 1863. She was buried at Old North Cemetery in Concord, New Hampshire.
Poor thing.
Yep. Pierce was further saddened by the death of his close friend, Nathaniel Hawthorne, the author.
Yeah.
He was the man who, among other things, wrote the Scarlet Letter. They were very close friends.
Wow.
In May 1864, as a matter of fact, Pierce was with Hawthorne when the writer died unexpectedly. But in 1864, Hawthorne had just dedicated his final book to Franklin Pierce.
Really?
And they were together. But that wasn't the end of Franklin Pierce's controversies as they continued to smear this broken man. Word spread after Lincoln's assassination in April 1865 that Franklin Pierce was not displaying the American flag in his neighborhood. A mob gathered outside his home in Concord, demanding to know why he did not raise a flag as a public mourning gesture. Why, are you a Southern sympathizer?
Yeah, right.
You Confederate?
Yeah, boob ya.
Yeah. Pierce got mad. He said, this has to stop. This has to stop. Keep in mind, he's beaten. He's a drunk.
Yeah.
He expressed sadness over Lincoln's death, but denied any need for a public gesture. Who are you to tell me I need to show a public gesture?
Yeah.
He told the mob that his history of military service and public service proved his patriotism.
Yeah. In the Congress, general in the war, president of the country.
Yep. That broke him up, I guess. Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Didn't make us like you any better.
Right.
But all right, we'll leave. As we said earlier, and throughout this podcast, Franklin Pierce battled alcoholism. And I mean, he was always a boozer. And then it escalated after Benny was killed and all of the pressures that were put on him with the scandals and his wife dying. And it began to impair his health in the last years of his life. And after his wife died, he became very spiritual.
Really?
On the second anniversary of Jane's death, he put down the bottle.
Whoa.
And was baptized into his wife's Episcopal faith at St. Paul's Church in Concord.
Wow.
Didn't last long. By mid-1869, he resumed his drinking. Can you imagine having a drinking problem back then, though? There was no Betty Ford to go to, or no 90 days.
And yeah, there was no restrictions on alcohol either, by the way.
He returned to Concord that September, suffering from cirrhosis of the liver. It was terminal.
Yeah.
He had cirrhosis. He was dying. He knew it. He knew he would never recover. But his wife, gone. His 3 kids, gone. His political future, ruined.
Done.
You know who took care of him? Caretaker.
Really?
Yep.
Jeez.
Caretaker was hired. None of his family members, even distant family members, none were present in his final days. He died at 4:35 a.m. on Friday, October 8th, 1869, at the age of 64.
That's young.
Yep. President Grant, who later defended Pierce's service in the Mexican-American War, declared that day a day of national mourning.
Okay.
Much of his $72,000 estate, that's what he was worth in 1869. By today's standards, they say that's around $1,740,000.
Okay.
That's what he was worth.
That's a lot of money.
That money went to his brother, Henry, and his family, to the Hawthorne children,
Oh, yeah.
and to Franklin Pierce's landlady.
Back rent? What was it?
I don't know. As we've discussed also through this podcast, Franklin Pierce is an afterthought, a forgotten, failed president. Number 47 on the list.
Yeah. But you can see why when he had so much tragedy.
Oh, yeah.
And also, as far as his presidency is concerned, not only was he dealing with the tragedy, but he wouldn't make a damn decision.
No, couldn't. Historian Eric Fauner says Pierce's administration turned out to be one of the most disastrous in American history. A little bit lighter look comes from a gentleman by the name of Gary Sparks. Gary is a tour guide for the Pierce home in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
He was a little bit kinder to Franklin Pierce than others.
What did he say?
I don't think Pierce comes down as one of our best presidents in any way. But he wasn't a terrible, awful person.
No, because as we said in the beginning, he was a likable guy.
Trusted, liked, very good looking, apparently.
Yep. And he never stood a chance. Never stood a chance.
No.
You have some tidbits,
I
don't
do.
you?
We said that his dad was the governor of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
His dad also was a general in the Revolutionary War.
Oh, right on.
Yep. And he also was one of the last things, I guess, that President Pierce said was literally, there's nothing left to live for.
He had nothing to live for.
Yeah.
He was living by himself.
Yeah.
No family around him, and he had a caretaker.
Yeah.
That's
I know, that's sad.
That is tough.
Great episode, though. Again, it's a tough story to hear, but a lot of people don't know about this fantastic president because all of our presidents are fantastic.
Yeah, nobody knows much about him.
Yeah.
They really don't.
Well, thanks to you, they do now. What are we going to do next?
In 2 weeks,
Yeah.
if you're like Jeff and you're like myself and you like to read, you discover new things all the time.
Yeah.
Now, you've always heard the adage, silent Calvin Coolidge, silent Cal.
Silent Cal.
Our 30th president. The guy had some weird habits. I don't know if
Are we going to go with quirks?
quirks.
Yeah. No.
It would be one of those things that you wouldn't want to live with him.
Okay.
And there was one tragedy in his life that made it even worse. We'll tell you about it. But he was an odd man, and had so many weird little idiosyncrasies about him. We'll look into it deeper than your teacher ever suggested.
That's right. This is not the stuff that you will get in school.
No.
But it is Beyond Mount Rushmore.
Yep.
I am Jeff Hickox and our self-proclaimed presidential historian, Stan Nawalaniec.
Hi, everybody.
And we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
2
Thanks
weeks. What about the Facebook and all of that stuff?
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to try to find a picture of Franklin Pierce and put that on the
Handsome
Facebook.
man.
Yeah, the handsome
Very
man
handsome.
that he is.
You know what? You could look at a picture of him, though. You can tell he was a boozer.
Yeah.
We'll see you later.
Thanks, friends.
Bye.